What's up, everybody? Lou from Hypocritic here, back on the show floor at PAX East 2024. We are here with Tony from Kess Entertainment to talk about Sonic Roll in the clutches of Dr. Eggman, no less. How's it going?
It's going all right.
Good. So, for those who don't know, maybe tell us a little bit about Kess Entertainment first.
Yeah, Kess is primarily a spring-summer toy company. They've been around for a long time. If you've ever seen a hula hoop, you probably saw a Kess product before. But we've been moving into board games the last few years. So we've been going to PAXs, to Origins, to Gen Con, showing our games. And we have a nice retro video game line, which Sonic Roll is the newest title in.
And speaking of, as lead designer, I imagine you know a thing or two about it. Tell us about Sonic Roll.
So yeah, Sonic Roll is our new 1 to 4 player semi-cooperative dice game where you're going to be taking the role of Sonic and his friends, teaming up to stop Dr. Eggman. It's semi-cooperative in that the players all win and lose together, but you have a score at the end and you can see who kind of won the most. It's also got some neat secrets in that if you play through a whole campaign, you're able to collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds. There's some little goodies inside the box you can find.
Awesome. And having demoed it and played it through here, it is a lot of fun. Now, whenever you start getting a project like this off the ground, I imagine that there's maybe some sort of iterations or a lot of trial and error with figuring out the core gameplay mechanics. From a development standpoint, how did you start to get Sonic Roll into the shape it is now?
So we started with like a proof of concept of rolling dice and matching it to certain things to see, like, is that a fun way to do a Sonic game? Is that a fun gameplay mechanic at all? When I design games, I like to start with a theme or a kind of a vibe, and so I try to think about what makes a Sonic game a Sonic game. In the game, the scoring system is based off of rings and getting Bandix and going through the level as fast as possible is kind of like the 3 tenets. And I did some research, and also I played a lot of Sonic growing up, so I kind of remembered what the games were like. I went back and also played a lot while I was developing it, obviously. And I saw some videos that were interesting on like just the vibe of Sonic and some of the inner mechanics. So that's kind of the basis of what we use to design the game. It started very simple of everyone's rolling at the same time and all sorts of stuff like that. But as we went through, we kind of narrowed it down, shaved off stuff, and when we got to the 3 acts or the 3 zones that you play on, we kind of found that that was a really good loop. It gave the player enough freedom to feel like they have control, but also like it's supposed to be a dice game where it's a little risky, a little chancy, and so it was the best vibe of not feeling too bad when you failed. Like it felt like it's kind of your fault, but also like you felt in control enough that you're having fun.
Yeah, and I think it comes together really well, especially from the perspective of integrating Sonic video game mechanics into a board and dice based game. Even things like destroying a badnik and a flicky token pops out and you get points and that kind of thing. I thought it was really interesting to see those worlds kind of come together. Were there any sort of unique challenges or interesting design goals you maybe didn't expect, or along the way there was anything did anything kind of stand out to you from a development perspective in terms of, I kind of didn't expect it to go this way?
Yeah, so a lot of times, like especially with games, you have to just kind of let the game find itself as you're developing, and this is definitely no different. Like there were these things that would happen that like started to click in and feel more Sonic-y. Like the way the dice work, the 3 different types of dice, they serve a purpose, but then also the more we leaned into the Sonic flavor, the better they work. Like a jump dice getting you a ring being like the safer, slower dice, and that's how Tails works. He's the safer, slower, methodical player. Sonic wants to go fast, and that the blue dice being able to run through quickly lends itself to that, where it's a little riskier, but also a little bit more fun. The spin dice destroying the badniks. Again, it's like because the red dice, all they do is technically gift you an animal, and so they don't seem as strong. But also because they're not as risky when you're rolling them. A badnik can't attack them usually. They also serve a purpose there. So like when you lift up the hood, you see a lot of things that are actually working together in the systems that just lean into the Sonic flavor. So that was really cool to watch happen. Even as the designer, like you tweak one little thing and it just all this world of possibility opens up.
Yeah, and again, it really feels very polished and thought out from that perspective. When you see all those mechanics kind of come together, it is really fun, and it plays really, really well. Now, the visuals and the design of the game, we were saying a lot of the assets and the visuals look pretty much taken straight out of Sonic Mania, and they're very, very close to a lot of those newer games that players know. That obviously comes from close association with SEGA and working on the Sonic brand. Can you tell us a little bit about working with SEGA and the brand guidelines to kind of put the game together, in cooperation with them?
So we have an excellent graphic designer / licensing manager who she works super closely with SEGA, and the people at SEGA were great. Michael Cisneros, we work with directly a lot. He's super great to work with. And their approval team, we were under a tight deadline, and we put them kind of like under pressure, but they got everything done. Worked with us real close. Luckily, there wasn't too much back and forth. We were working directly with the assets from Sonic Mania and Sonic 3 and whatnot. So as long as I'm familiar with sprite, pixel work and whatnot, so it was pretty easy to get everything together. Our graphic design team, who put together the rule book and the box and all that stuff, did great. Tracy Yardley, who did the illustration, he's a Sonic comic artist, and he was fantastic to work with. It was really cool that we got to do that. Like I said, the team that put together the Genesis look for the box, they basically the team knew what they were doing, and so it was a really smooth process there.
Yeah, it sounds like very natural then, and a lot of cooperation to make it happen, which is really, really good. Now, getting it out to trade shows like this, having it under development, kind of putting it all together, putting it in players' hands and starting to see their reaction and having them play through it. What was that experience like for you? Again, as a developer, designer, you work on it for a while and you start to get it out into the world and have people get their hands on it. What's that experience like?
Honestly, that's the reason I come to these shows. It's the most fantastic feeling in the world, seeing someone who is playing it and seeing their smile when they see what Blue Sphere is, and like, oh yes, I remember that. Oh, that's why it does that. Hearing someone say that, like, oh, that's why it's like that, it's kind of indescribable. It's one of the best feelings in the world, I think, as a game designer. And the reception has been huge. It's been great. Everyone has been just wanting to come check us out. We've been slammed the whole time. For the last few months, SEGA has been working with us for some marketing and whatnot, getting the hype out there. So people have been excited for this game. The response has been phenomenal.
And that's got to be so satisfying and gratifying. Right?
It really is, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, as a designer yourself, how have maybe other projects or other work you've done in the past, how did that influence your work on Sonic Roll? And how does your history with sort of board and maybe tabletop game development come into play when you're working on a new project, say?
So Sonic was interesting. It's the first dice game that I've ever tried to create, and so I've worked with a lot of card games. I've made card games before, but dice are a very different component. So you have to kind of learn to work with them, which again was interesting. It was part of finding the game along the way. And like dice, they're little random number generators, but they can be precarious, right? Like if there's too much randomness, people don't have fun, and if there's not enough, it doesn't feel like a dice game. So finding the ways to lean into that, to use what we had, really concentrate on the mechanics and the components to build the best game for what it needed to be, was an interesting experience. I definitely learned a lot working on this. I think dice are a fun thing to use. Who doesn't like clacking around a bunch of dice?
It's very tactile.
Yes.
That is true. Final question then, if people like Sonic Roll and they want to check it out for themselves, how can they get it?
So you can always go to Kess Entertainment, check out our website, we have it there. It's also available right now at Barnes & Noble, so you can check us out there, and I believe at Books A Million.
Fantastic. All right, Tony, thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Of course, yeah. My
pleasure. Keep it tuned here to Hypocritic GG for more from PAX East all weekend long.